What is going on, everyone? This is Sarah coming at you from just outside of Hartford, Connecticut. And today we're going to discuss the 2021 Central Division in the NHL. We're going to do team-by-team offseason recaps. That way there, we know what's going on, and we know what they did. So, if you haven't seen it, this is going to be a part of a playlist here. We're going to call it the 2021 NHL offseason. And the first video is going to be discussing the divisions, so that's why if you look at this one, you're going to be a little confused because these teams normally don't play together. So the Central Division in the 2021 season is going to be the Carolina Hurricanes, Chicago Blackhawks, Columbus Blue Jackets, Dallas Stars, Detroit Red Wings, Florida Panthers, Nashville Predators, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. So obviously due to the events of 2020, the NHL said, okay, we got to change our divisions around, do as minimal travel as possible. And this was the division they came up with, keeping in mind that the Canadian teams all are grouped together for visa concerns. So without further ado, let's jump right in, and we'll start with the Carolina Hurricanes. And the Hurricanes didn't do too much this offseason. So they acquired a few players in right wing Jesper Fast, and they did also sign centerman Drew Shore. And they also re-signed a pair of their own free agents in defenseman Hayden Fleury and left wing Warren Foegele. Solid re-signs for decent prices. And then they would lose defenseman Joel Edmondson in essentially what was a salary dump, defenseman Trevor Van Riemsdyk, and right wing Justin Williams, who officially announced his retirement after 20-odd years in the NHL. Good for him. Always good to see him retire. He got his ring already, so essentially for Carolina, this team's definitely good, and it definitely works in Carolina's favor that they're put in the Central Division over the East Division, that's for sure. The East is a gauntlet right now, really. And this division's definitely good, but Carolina is among the best. Carolina still hasn't solved their goaltending problem. I'm still not the biggest fan of that goaltender situation in Carolina, but they do have a lot of studs on the offensive side of the puck. They have an okay defense, not the best, but far from the worst. So, Carolina's definitely not going to be a weak team. You're going to have to fight this team to get past them. They're definitely going to be contenders this year, 100%. Next, we have the Chicago Blackhawks. And Chicago had a bit of a busier offseason. So, they re-signed goaltender Malcolm Subban, as well as left wing Dominic Kubalik. And they also signed free agents such as centerman Lucas Wallmark and Dylan Strome, as well as left wing Carl Soderberg, who's still around. And they did acquire defenseman Nikita Zadorov via trade. Now, they did lose left wing Brandon Saad and defenseman Ali Mata, both via trade. And then they ended up buying out goaltender Corey Crawford. So they lost two pieces of their dynasty again. Obviously, Saad had left and came back, and Crawford was the goaltender during the dynasty. Both are gone now. And the other thing for Chicago, I didn't write this down, is Jonathan Toews, arguably the most recognizable name from the dynasty. He is in a weird situation where he's been dealing with an illness, an unknown illness. He's out at least to start the season. They don't know if he's going to return during the 2021 campaign. Obviously, best wishes to him and his family. Hopefully everything's good with him. Hopefully he's back soon. Hopefully we see him play hockey this year, but his health matters more than seeing him on the ice again. So Chicago's in an interesting position again. The goaltending situation's not the best right now, but this team is still trying to essentially compete. Acquiring Wallmark, he's an underrated player in my opinion, and Soderberg, who's definitely in a weird position. I don't know why he would join a rebuilding club. We'll see with Chicago. Chicago has a chance to do some good, but, the dynasty's really on its last steps here for players still on the team. I think it's down to a couple players at this point, so, next, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets, and they've made a couple moves, but nothing too crazy. So they got three centers in center Max Domi, acquired via trade. They signed center Mikko Koivu, and they also re-signed center Pierre-Luc Dubois. And then they recently gave right wing Oliver Bjorkstrand a contract extension. So that's always a big plus for them. And then they would lose only a couple players in right wing Josh Anderson via trade for Max Domi, as well as centerman Alexander Wenberg, who was actually bought out. So Columbus is in a weird position as well. They're probably in grounds to compete, but they're not necessarily going to be the strongest team in this division. They have some flaws. The goaltending situation is decent, not the best, but it's not the worst. This team, to me, just doesn't have the offensive firepower to be a real heavyweight. Next, we have the Dallas Stars, who, of course, are the defending runner-ups, the defending Western Conference champs. But the 2021 season is going to be something different. So, yeah. So Dallas, they re-signed goaltender Anton Khudobin, of course, and then just a couple more depth signings, and also re-signing left wing Roope Hintz. A pair of solid re-signings. They didn't really go outside of the organization to get players this offseason. And they did lose right wing Corey Perry and defenseman Roman Polak. Polak, of course, going back overseas to Europe. He's probably not going to come back to the NHL for a little bit, if he does at all. Corey Perry was a key piece during their run last year in the playoffs, but he got offered more money. With the salary cap not going up this year, Corey Perry was kind of a cap casualty for the Stars. But Dallas is in an interesting position. This division is going to be a little more difficult than last year's Central Division, but Dallas definitely has a chance to step up here. They should be a playoff team. They definitely have the firepower to do it. The real question, though, comes down to their goaltending. Of course, Khudobin's dealing with an injury, but when Khudobin and Bishop are both healthy, who's going to be the starter? That's the real question to me. Right now, it looks like it'll be Khudobin, but next we have the Detroit Red Wings, who have been in essentially a seemingly never-ending rebuild. So this team went out and acquired a good amount of veterans this offseason, namely right wing Bobby Ryan and right wing Vladislav Namstakov, as well as re-signing a couple key players in left wing Tyler Bertuzzi, right wing Anthony Mantra, and they also signed goaltender Thomas Greiss, and they traded for defenseman Mark Stahl. Now, for all those acquisitions, they really didn't lose too much. They had to buy out left wing Justin Albuquerque. They lost goaltender Jimmy Howard, and defenseman Trevor Daley essentially was a free agent and then he retired. So nothing too bad. Detroit should be a little better. Maybe Dylan Larkin can finally break out this year because he has a few more veterans on his team. Maybe these veterans can help him out. Time will tell. Detroit, definitely not a competitor yet, but if they can start producing young talent soon, they're going to start doing better. Next, we have the Florida Panthers, who had a relatively quiet offseason. So they made one of, if not my absolute favorite free agent acquisition this season when they signed left wing Anthony Duclair. Very good player. They also acquired left wing Scott Wilson and a pair of defensemen, namely Radko Gudas, and re-signing Mackenzie Weegar. So they lost center Eric Haula, center Lucas Walmark, and of course the big hit for them was losing right wing Evgeny Dadonov. So Dadonov was a fan favorite out in Florida. Now he's gone, so that's going to hurt a little bit. But the thing with Florida is they're probably going to be a playoff team from this division. They're probably looking to be the third or the fourth from this division. They're definitely behind two teams. Duclair really helps. They got him on a 1-year, $1.7 million deal, I believe it was. So that's a big signing for Florida. I loved it. Radko Gudas adds some intimidation. They signed him for a bit more money than I would have, but Florida is going to be a tough team to play this year. Next, we have the Nashville Predators, who had the most quiet offseason of all these teams. They pretty much just signed a couple players in defenseman Mark Borowiecki and right wing Michael Granlund, as well as center Eric Haula and right wing Nick Cousins. And then they would lose centerman Kyle Turris, who they bought out, and Craig Smith. So Nashville's in an odd position. Yes, they made the quote-unquote playoffs last year, but they didn't really make a splash. The real question comes down to what their goalie situation is going to be, because they have Saros, they have Rene, but who's going to be the starter? Is it time for Pekka Rene to just kind of lay down and say, all right, I'm not the starter anymore? Does Nashville think we just want to give this guy one more year? It's a real question. Nashville doesn't have the defense it had before. They're getting older. So Nashville looks like they're going to be going into a rebuild very soon, unfortunately for them. Lastly, we have the defending champion, Tampa Bay Lightning. And they basically, due to salary restraints, they couldn't do much at all. So they just re-signed 4 of their players, 3 of them being defensemen in Luke Sheehan, Mikhail Sergachev, and Eric Cernak. And then, of course, they had to re-sign centerman Anthony Cirelli. Now, like I said, salary cap concerns, so they had to essentially trade away defenseman Braden Coburn for next to nothing, as well as buying out centerman Tyler Johnson. If I said centerman for Coburn, I apologize, defenseman. But and then they also had to lose defenseman Zach Bogosian and Kevin Shattenkirk to free agency. So of course, Kucherov is dealing with an injury now. He's more likely than not going to miss the entirety of the 2021 campaign. That's a big loss for Tampa Bay. Other than that, the team's going to be very, very much the same as the team that won the Cup. So, yeah. Real quick little breakdown here. So, which teams do I think will make the playoffs from this division? Carolina, Dallas, definitely. I'd say Florida is going to be right up there. I'd say Tampa is still good enough to make it. But Tampa's going to get some good competition from Columbus this year. I wouldn't be absolutely shocked to see Colorado have a good year, but I don't think they're really going to be amazing. And Nashville, Detroit, thank you for playing. Detroit's going to do a little better, I think. But yeah, so that's our 2021 Central Division for the NHL. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely feel free to leave a comment if you think I got something wrong with my predictions for my 4 playoff teams. Have a good one.